Dawn in Strongsville, Ohio. A Toyota Camry barrels down an industrial road and slams into a brick wall. The speed reads close to 100 miles per hour. 2 passengers die. The 17-year-old driver survives. Months later, a judge studies the evidence and says what many didn't expect to hear. This was not an accident. It was murder. July 31, 2022. Just after 6 a.m. Near Progress Drive and Alameda Drive. Inside the Camry are driver Mackenzie Shirilla, her boyfriend Dominic Russo, and friend Davian Flanagan.
Crash, the investigation, and the arrest of Mackenzie Shirilla. The now 20-year-old is serving a 15-year-to-life sentence after she was found guilty of killing her boyfriend and friend in a crash in 2022.
Officers arrived to catastrophic damage. Russo and Flanagan are pronounced dead at the scene, while Shirilla is extricated and hospitalized. The case does not go to a jury. Shirilla waives that right. This becomes a bench trial in Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court before Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, no relation to Dominic. The question for the court is tight and technical: crash or intentional act.
Some very surprising behavior of a 17-year-old girl who's been convicted of intentionally crashing her car, killing her 2 passengers.
Prosecutors file multiple counts of murder, felonious assault, and aggravated vehicular homicide, plus ancillary offenses. Under Ohio law, if the state proves purpose to kill, it's murder. Recklessness without purpose is something less. The difference is measured in decades. A view from the street. In a telemove, the judge conducts a view of the scene, traveling the same corridor toward the dead-end brick building to understand sightlines, run-up, and time available to act. That real-world context will later appear in the court's analysis. Friends describe a teenage relationship under stress, arguments, reconciliations, mixed signals. A witness recalls heated words weeks before the crash. "I'm going to wreck this car." Standing alone, it might sound like teenage drama, but the state will pair it with video and vehicle data, what the cameras see. Surveillance clips show the Camry ease through a turn, line up on a long, empty straightaway, and accelerate toward a dead end. No obvious skid, no swerve away. In court presentations and news packages, this footage becomes a backbone of the state's theory. What the car says. Investigators download the event data recorder, the EDR, often called a black box. A reconstruction expert testifies that the accelerator holds at 100% for roughly 4.6 seconds before impact. There is no recorded braking. A decisive steering input occurs near the end, and the vehicle briefly goes airborne over a curb before striking the building. A trauma physician and paramedics describe Shirilla's post-crash state: confusion, low oxygen. The defense points to these facts to suggest medical possibilities and memory gaps. The judge will weigh those against the objective video and EDR data. Remember the alleged threat: "I'm going to wreck this car." Prosecutors say those words plan intent. The EDR supplies the payoff: a minute-by-minute record of choices. The defense counters that teenagers talk dramatically, and that words are not deeds. The court's task is to match any story to physics. Investigators explain that unintentional crashes often show panic braking, steering away from danger, or throttle release. Here, they say, the pattern is the opposite: full throttle through the final seconds. No brake trace, a straight path into a fixed object. Judge Russo's line will be quoted everywhere: "This was not reckless driving. This was murder." Devices and social media show the ordinary swirl of teenage life photos, dismiss, bravado, fear. Prosecutors argue some context points to motive. The defense warns against reading malice into curated posts. The judge keeps returning to non-human witnesses: the cameras and the car's computer. Map exhibits trace a measured turn-in, then a long, empty run-up through an industrial strip at dawn. Few cars, no sudden hazards. The prosecution's refrain is simple: Time existed. Time to lift, time to brake, time to steer. Every second with the pedal down is another decision. Friends and relatives recall both warmth and volatility between the couple. Some say Dominic planned to end the relationship. Others say the night before was normal. Such contradictions are common in young relationships. The EDR does not contradict itself. A crash analyst demonstrates weight transfer, pedal position, and steering angle charts. When the Camry strikes a curb near the end, the throttle reading does not drop. In the state's narrative, an accident tries to avoid. Intent continues. The data shows continuation. With no jury, counsel pitched to a single legal audience. The defense raises pedal misapplication or mechanical fault. The state replies that confusion creates indecision, and the EDR shows commitment plus. Deliberate steering that undercuts a stuck accelerator theory. Later released footage gives the public another window into the post-crash timeline and arrest. Regardless of reactions online, the judge relies on admissible trial evidence, primarily video, the EDR, and live testimony. August 14, 2023. After reviewing the evidence and making findings of fact, Judge Russo pronounces Shirilla guilty on all counts. She calls the driving controlled, methodical, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. A line echoed in national coverage. Family members deliver victim impact statements. Friends and parents describe empty chairs. Birthdays now observed at graves. The judge's remarks frame the tragedy as a crime proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The court imposes life with parole eligibility after 15 years concurrent. Life terms and permanently suspends Shirilla's driver's license, granting credit for time served. The sentencing rationale returns to that 4.6-second window of sustained acceleration.
But I don't believe that would be the appropriate sentence, because I do believe that Mackenzie will not be out in 15 years. So she's sentenced on count 2, the murder of Davion Flanagan, 15 years to life.
Intent can form in an instant, but here prosecutors argue it was formed, confirmed, and maintained across several seconds. The judge accepts that reading, a sustained, controlled approach inconsistent with an accident pattern. On September 26, 2024, the Court of Appeals affirms the convictions.
The Ohio Supreme Court will not hear the appeal of a Strongsville teen convicted of murder. Attorneys for Mackenzie Shirilla, now 20, argued the medical examiner improperly altered autopsy reports in her case.
In its opinion, the panel cites the surveillance route, the EDR's full throttle, no brake profile, and testimony about the pre-crash threat. In April 2025, the Supreme Court of Ohio declines to accept the case for further review, leaving the appellate ruling in place. A trial court later denies a new trial request as untimely. Post-trial, a new legal team tells reporters they believe medical factors were overlooked and files new motions. Coverage notes the claim, but also that courts, to date, have not changed the outcome. The names Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan anchored tributes and memorials. Local reporting revisits the case on appeal milestones, retelling the morning drive and the court's findings. What people ask. Why no jury? Because she waived it lawful and strategic, sometimes preferred when evidence is technical. Why murder instead of only vehicular homicide? Because the judge found purpose to kill proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Why concurrent terms? Judicial discretion. The controlling term remains 15 to life. Why a lifetime license suspension? Because the court found a car used as a weapon. Court TV's releases show the approach toward the wall useful to visualize the route jurists considered. Editors and viewers returned to the same frames. The court evaluated. Additional body cam segments circulated later, shaping public perception, but not the legal standard, which hinges on evidence tested in court. The judge's decision relies on the record, not online reaction. What this case is not. It is not a blanket judgment on teen drivers, nor a denial of rehabilitation. Parole eligibility after 15 years reflects the law's balance of accountability and Possibility, however, uncertain of change with time. Picture that straight industrial corridor at sunrise. The brick facade does not move. The car has time to lift, to brake, to steer. The data says she does none of those things. The law reads intent from conduct. The defense invokes adolescent impulsivity. The court applies the statute. Many teens make mistakes and learn. Here, 2 passengers died, and the record video and data met the elements of murder. Judges apply law to fact. Mercy, if it comes, arrives later at parole based on rehabilitation and responsibility. Until then, the sentence stands. 15 years to life. License revoked for life. What convinced the court? Not one fact, but the constellation, the prior threat, the long, predictable route, the surveillance frames, the EDR's full throttle, no brake profile, steering inputs, the curb strike, the unmoving wall. Together, they formed a picture of purpose. Defense counsel warned against turning tragedy into malice, citing possible error and confusion. The judge returned to timing, seconds that allowed a different choice. Appeals were denied, the evidence upheld, and Mackenzie Shirilla remains incarcerated. The court's final word was unequivocal. This was murder.